I was asked to make a couple of comments about the sort of economic consequences of the 2010 election. And I think the takeaway message is that you do have Democrats and Republicans coming from a significantly different philosophy about the economy. That is to say, the mainstream Democrats and mainstream Republicans. And the Republicans generally believe that you should trust business, that you should give companies and businesses and private enterprise a relatively free rein, let them create jobs, make a profit, and essentially produce economic activity, which will then generate, even at relatively low tax rates, tax revenue to spend on defense and on a lot of different programs that are required by the federal government, that are federal government programs. On the other hand, the Republicans also believe that the federal government should have fewer programs, less welfare, privatize some things, including Ronald Reagan at one point was talking about privatizing the weather service and other satellites and so on. The Democrats, of course, believe that more in a more activist government, a government that has a hand in more things, that that taxes in a progressive way so that wealthy people have a higher marginal tax rate than others, and then spends money on things such as stimulating the economy, bailing out companies such as the auto industry, expanding high-speed rail service in the United States, and investing in alternative energy and in environmental sustainability and so on. And the policies, therefore, depending on who's in the White House and in the Congress, tend to reflect those differences between those two parties. So for those of us who are coastal policy scientists and want to be working in the area of coastal zone management as professionals, we need to think, if the Republicans win in the House and Senate, and then if the Republicans win the 2012 election and come back into power, we need to think, how can we leverage the private enterprise, because it's likely that there will be budget cuts and that public funding will be less. So I think we need to become more imaginative, more aggressive, more clever in working with private companies and non-governmental organizations and others that corporations and others who have a lot of revenue would like to support and would be willing to support. And I think it can be done. I think one of the biggest problems, frankly, is that we tend to wait for government to do a lot of the stuff for us and give us the money, and then we do the research and development and so on. And that means that we go lean years when the Republicans don't want to spend a lot of money on these kinds of things, which often are felt to be both feely touchy and also felt to be maybe anti-business. When you try to regulate the oil industry and pollution and do all kinds of things that put mandates on business, in this case coastal business, coastal companies and so on, coastal development, coastal infrastructure, that when you put restrictions on that, that you're interfering with it. Democrats feel that in the long run, good regulation pays for itself. You don't have to have big cleanups. You don't have essentially risky construction in places that are vulnerable to storms and to other degradation. So I think my conclusion right now on the economy is that the Republicans, if they get in, are going to cut spending and want to deregulate business again and some more. Obama is going to struggle with the Republicans in the House and maybe even in the Senate, although I don't think the Democrats will lose the Senate. I think the Democrats will lose the House in 2010. We need to think about also working more with the private sector. So if we want to build a research center of some sort, we need to have some big corporate sponsors firmly behind us, understanding why they want to do it, either because for their own personal reasons where they love coral reefs, or they like to go deep sea fishing and want to preserve all those kinds of environments, or if it has to do with their business interests, we still need to go to those people who leverage a lot of resources, and those people can also be very helpful then in helping work with Congress and with the administration in having public-private funding, come together that way. I think that's something that I would say to you as scientists and as coastal zone managers. You need to become politically involved. You can't just sit there as scientists and say, well, I'm doing the right thing, and I know my marine biology and chemistry and geology and all of the other wonderful fields, and I don't need to be engaged in the political process. If you want to be a leader in your field, you need to be engaged in the political process. You need to make friends with politicians, go to meetings, volunteer for campaigns. I don't care if it's Democrats or Republicans either, by the way, or even the Green Party, or the Libertarian Party, although those have almost no chance ever of getting anyone in a position of authority. Get to know them and use your knowledge, your interest, and your passion to educate them. I'm finding that the postings that you have, although I enjoy them a great deal, often seem to miss the point, that there is this other world out there in which people are not thinking the way you and I, all of us, might think, and that we need to go out and find coastal engineering firms, people who want to develop and invest in marinas, the boating industry, the whole coastal recreation industry, and make them stakeholders in what we want to do to make the coastal zones better, cleaner, nicer, friendlier, and therefore also preserve them for future recreation, as conservation, as well as future business. We need to do that more, and I would like to convince you, to invest a little bit of your time in that. I know you're very busy, but you got to do it. You got to go out there and become a leader using your science and your interest to educate policymakers and people in the business community and bring them together to do some big things. Our economy is very fragile right now. The economic recovery is going to probably take 10 years. So we need to squeeze every cent that we can, every goodwill that we can from all kinds of different places, because I think the federal government is not going to be spending the kind of money that, let's say, Obama was spending on the things that we like. So it's just a heads up for you, because as I watch the economy, I think we need to be cognizant of that. Thanks a lot.